I too loud now, or?
I think you sound fine.
Okay.
I generally turn myself
I know
down on
that.
purpose. Because,
Right.
I assume you're using, this, right? Like, that's your headphone, right? Like, that's your headset?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, like mine's a giant microphone that always outcasts everyone, so I always turn myself down. And this time I turn
Strong.
the audio on, so, we could hear you speak. Like, that's a little important. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so there was the one where you didn't do that, and it was just you and your own thoughts with random interspersed pauses,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, totally. Funny thing
not great.
Christian listened to that one, which is even funnier.
I think didn't he make a comment like I think the audio is not great for.
Yeah, it's like, duh.
It's like no fucking shit.
It was really common. I literally went in and purposely edited like anything that was coming through my headphones that you could hear through my mic. It was like, well, there's something there. Something. All right. You good to go?
I am great to go.
All right. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protocols cast. I am joined, as always, with my lovely co-host. Today he's below me, ironically, dancing as always. Mr. Wyatt. How you doing, Mr. Wyatt?
I'm doing good. We get to talk about some Transformers, slinging some bots around today. So
yeah, it's been a long summer for sure. We haven't done this all summer long. Busy summer, vacations, moving for both of us, right? I think that we both moved.
a new job.
New jobs. Yeah, there's a lot going on. So it was busy. It was busy, but we have been releasing a couple updates to the site yesterday. There was another update released to the Patreon this week. We've gotten back into the flow of some videos, so it was kind of like time to pick back up where we left off, and if anything, remind everyone that we never went away, right? That's the real truth there. Tournament series has been still going around all summer. We will get into that and talked about what Legends have done to the metagame a little bit. The couple things that we are going to be covering is, like I just said, ATP4's impact. We're going to be covering the ban list update a little bit. Not crazy too much into it, but more or less why we thought it was necessary and why we got into it. And then we're going to do a little bit of early discussion on ATP5. And then at the end, whatever we come to think about, we'll just chat for a bit. So, is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Let's see. I think we'll probably cover this in the ban list segment, but just as a precursor, so the ban list updates for this go round were probably, of the bans we've released, the softest ban, right? Where these are the decisions of the bans that we've made historically. These are the ones that we are the least convinced. We're still very convinced of them, but the least convinced relatively that they are lasting necessities, right?
Yeah. Before we get into that discussion, because I like where you're starting with that, the only thing that I would like to go off real quick is to quickly once again shout out Extra Life. We did have the event a couple weeks ago. $220 in donations, which was awesome. Very happy about all of that. And I just want to thank everyone that participated, everyone that played, everyone that donated, anyone that was on stream hanging out, because I had a lot of other friends that were just hanging out in stream and chatting with us. And that was a lot of fun to deliver information about the game to them, which was cool. So that was the one thing I wanted to cover before we got into the ban list. So once again, thank you guys for all that. And what I can tell you, I will officially announce this right now, is that our next event for Extra Life will be November 6th, that Saturday, it's Extra Life weekend. I am still planning on doing a 24-hour stream, even though it's going to be chaotic, but I think I'm going to go for it. And this will be a part of that 24 hours. But the cool thing that I'm here to announce to you today, after talking to Mr. Scott Landis, is the first place prize for that event will be an Energon edition. So that's a big, fun prize for anyone that's looking for that. So I was really excited to get that information from him that we're going to offer a first place prize of an Energon edition. So that was your first announcement there. There'll be more announcements to come. I have been sparkling in the raffle idea. I'm going to be doing a big raffle on the stream as well for all sorts of crap. I think I'm going to get a couple more donations from other people. I don't want to say their names because they might not be able to do it, but I might be getting more donations, so I'm going to be adding more and more prizes to that as well. So that'll be fun. I plan on doing a video for that probably sometime in the next 2 weeks, so there's enough time for people to get involved and know when the raffle's going to be and all that fun stuff. But that's everything for Extra Life. So I would like to definitely hit on the list that you were talking about. The last thing you left off with was the idea that this is a soft ban, and I think it shows in layers in some ways, specifically what our ban list is for Titan 1. Because like that's the one that shouts out the most, because we didn't ban anything in Titan 1. We unbanned things. And I think
3 things.
Right, and I think the reasoning that I look at that as like our softer ban concept and idea is because that is something at the end of the day. Now we're almost a year to the day to the first Titan 1 event. I believe the first Titan 1 event was like September 18th through the 21st. It was somewhere in that day last year. So that was the first one that we ever did. And ever since then, it's just grown, right? Like, it's grown with us. It's grown with the tournament series. It's grown with the Alpha Triumph protocols. The entire concept of that format has grown. So we knew it would be growing pains, right? Like, we just knew that. We knew there would be things we had to learn. There would be things we had to implement, ban, unban, all those things. So that kind of going full circle, because those cards were put on the ban list, I think, December of last year. It was right around that time, I believe. Maybe it was January. I can't exactly remember.
I think it was January. I think it was January.
Right,
so I think 2 events.
We were talking about it in December, so that's kind of where I'm at, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, so like those cards were put on the ban list then, and they stayed there, through half of season 2 and all of season 3, and now half of season 4, since we still have 2 events left for season 4. And it just shows you where our thought process behind the cards was 9 months ago and where it is now. And the most intriguing thing about that is that we knew 9 months ago that if we didn't make those bannings to literally our own cards that we made, that the formats would not look very much different. And that was the real issue. We wanted to make sure that the ban list, it wasn't because the cards were too powerful or not too powerful. It was the separation of formats that had to happen, and that's the biggest deal. So 9 months ago, we knew, like, okay, if we don't make these bans, these are going to be the best decks, and we just know it got proven over and over again in season 2, like where Jetfire was in its finals a couple times, Sky Shadow Darkmount was in the finals a couple times.
There was always 2 or 3 well-performing rally decks.
Right, like Rally had won 2 events, I believe. I don't think it won a tournament series event, but it won 2 different one-day events, and I think even in the one it was like the top 2. So like it was like 3 finals appearances and 2 one-day events, So like we knew the power level of that card, and then Metroplex was another one that it just was like we knew the direction that Titan 1 was going, and that the weaknesses that it had in Fulcon, it did not have in Titan 1. It was just less things to like really combat the Heed the Call stratagem. So it was just like we knew we had to go. Now we believe there is enough things to compete with these cards to where 2 things are true, I believe. One is those cards might not be as powerful in full constructed, which means they're not dominant decks in full constructed. And then 2, now they're being legal in Titan 1. We don't believe that they are we don't believe that they're S tier cards any longer. We believe that they are playable cards in the format that, if anything, add more deck construction ideas and separates themselves from legends for the most part as well, because none of the legends can actually pair with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that is largely because of the no stratagems thing.
Right.
And the no stratagems line on a lot of the legend mode arise conditions was initially designed so that they would not be as easily paired with the ATP1 set of things. That was intentional. That was a balancing point. We explored it during play testing, and it was something that we actively decided was not something we really wanted to be a part of things. We thought that it would condense the formats a lot. Right? I think when you talk about the initially banning I Don't Believe in Destiny, Heed the Call, and Rally, that was partially because, I guess, like back when we talked about it, the idea was that we were designing cards in ATP 1 for the Wave 5 format, Titan Master Attack, which was a Power 10 format, right? Full constructed was a Power 10 format, and ATP 1 was like a 9.5 on the power scale, so that it could influence it, but it wouldn't disrupt it entirely, right? And I think the concept of the Titan 1 format at its inception was much closer to like an 8 on the power level. So by comparison, like the really powerful HP1 stuff was just way above the curve, right? We have, through releases, steadily ratcheted up the power level of all formats, right? And where that original HP1 release is. It only, it took us 3 more releases, but that's that is something that we were striving to do, is because we wanted those cards to be available for people again. We know how fun it is to play with some of those old characters in the revamped style, right? And I think that is what we were experimenting, is with that hypothesis that we believe things have caught up there, and we believe that releasing those is an additional way to build some or to bring back previous pillars of the metagame in on a kind of a big tier 1. That is what we're kind of trying to construct in Titan 1, is if you're going to buy a tier list, we'd like for there to not be a tier 0 deck, and for there to be a big tier 1, so that things were able to rotate well. And I have quite a lot of faith that actually that's going to be happening. So
yeah, and it's like you said, this is a soft ban or a soft unban. Either way, like at the end of the day, we only have so many hours in the day, so we can't just be testing our formats, testing ATP 5, testing it in 3 different formats like all the time, along with an active field. So this is very much like a trial by fire type thing, where it's like, okay, we think, because we understand how the game works at that level, that these cards can be free and it not break a format. So it is more of it is one of those, like, we believe that this is true. If we're wrong, then we're wrong, and we'll know immediately. And everyone will know immediately, and we'll be the first people to tell you we were wrong, and that's okay. Like, we're prepared to be wrong if we are, but we do believe that it's better for the format in general to give players the option to play those cards, because, like I said, where we are in full constructed now, I don't remember the last time I seen someone register a rally, to be honest, in full constructed. I believe in Destiny still gets maybe 1, maybe 2 decks an event when full con comes around, and Heed the Call is another one that it's maybe 1, maybe 2. It's not, those cards weren't as dominant as they were 9 months ago in full constructed, and we want a place for those cards to feel like what they were designed for. And I believe that we have reached a point in time, like you said, like we've caught up with enough with enough synergy with Seekers, with enough synergy with Wreckers, and a lot of the other concepts that we've put into the game, to where now the combination of 2 or 3 sets have reached up to the par of the power level of those cards had to be to make the impact that they did a year ago. So
yeah. And I think there's even more soft banning mentality, or soft ban list update mentality when you look at the other bans too. So we unbanned in Titan 1. We had 1 ban each in full con and in Junkie. On the full con ban, we banned Magrak, a menace for the metagame. Since its release, the card I think was originally put in there as a safety valve by the original designers. I can't actually say that for certain, right? I wasn't part of the design by any means, but it is just oppressive, and it's always been oppressive, and it is of the cards left in the game at this point, probably the single most this wasn't a game feeling card. Right, like I play 1 and that was the game. Like that was what decided it, and it wasn't it wasn't interesting. It really is just limiting, and so we're trying to get rid of it in full constructed, where specifically Quake is still a player.
It's still S tier at the end of the day.
Right. It's still a tier. It's still very much tier 1. Like, it is very much tier 1 still, right?
It's still very much tier 1 because it still beats up on almost all the other tier 1 decks, and it's just its losses are tier 2 decks. So it's
or
requiring...
tier 1.5 decks.
Right, like
except for Menasor. Menasor is like the only tier 1 deck that really crushes.
It's requiring
Quake.
a certain set of decks to have to be played. Like, if people just decide not to play these, like, answers that we delivered in the game, then, like, that deck is just... it's just always going to do well. Like, because it's, like... its matchup against everything is probably, like, 60-40, like, in favor, almost against everything. And then it has, like, hard losses. And, like, we've designed the tournament scene to have those options for players that just absolutely despise Quake, basically, like you and I, because that's why we played Menasor, but that's besides the point. So yeah, like it's this card. It's like you said, this card leaves just as much fail of a taste in people's mouth as a Peace to Tyranny did, as a security checkpoint did. Like, it really does. Like, it's like, it's one thing to like go into an event and go, all right, I'm gonna play an Autobot deck, and like, I know I'm just gonna lose the Mag Rays, right? Like, it's another thing to like have that mindset and then play a game, and you're like, all right, cool. I am in this game. We are good. And then they're like, off the top, Mag Ray, kill 2 guys, be in infinite better position. You're just like, what am I supposed to do? You know, like, what am I
concede? Go to game 2. Like,
right.
that's the. Like, and you're right. It's the last card that really is in there that feels like that, and it's not symmetrically playable.
Right. The only one is Belligerence is the only one left, but that card, I think we both agree on, is absolutely necessary to the game.
I think at this point, I think the way a lot of our design philosophy has made it such that belligerence and end hostilities are necessary safety valves at this point,
right.
For the game to not bog.
Right.
And I will say this too, right? I think the other last, like, oh my god card that's left in the game is Mission Briefing. That's only in full con. It can go in any deck.
Yeah.
And there are other card draw options available for the other strategies that don't want to be playing it. And I think, like, the fact that we've equalized there, it's not coming to Titan 1. So don't take this as like a stamp of approval for the card.
No.
But Mission Briefing is a card that I do not think is it's not in danger of being banned in full constructed.
No.
But yeah,
no,
Mag Ray being gone. So, but part of the reason I brought that up, by the way, sorry, was because if the ban in full constructed looks great, there is still time down the line where we could consider banning it in Titan 1 as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now we don't feel that's necessary.
It very much weighs in on the double Titan or triple Titan lineups that they even get value out of it sometimes. So it's not even just like, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna like 2 your board, 1 mine. It's like, sometimes it's worse than that. It's like, oh, I'm gonna 2 your board, I'm gonna 1 my board, I'm gonna kill my own Fangry, I'm gonna get an extra dude to attack, Quake trigger, horrible trigger, like, it's just like all of these things like just occur because of just one card. And on top of that, the compounding effect that orange black, much like we'll discuss in Junkion, is still the best deck in the metagame. And this card, without a doubt, hits that extremely hard. But if at anything, it is an attempt to shake up what the metagame looks like in full constructed, because it's like wide, but it's not, because a lot of the deck lists still look so similar. And that's the biggest issue, I think, with full constructed.
Inside of archetypes, I think a lot of the big boy blue decks look similar. A lot of the orange black decks look similar. A lot of the there have not been many true orange decks in full constructed in a while, save maybe the one I played. That was a true orange deck, and I top 8'd that event.
Yeah,
but I was in a Autobots deck, and the first time I played against Quake, I got absolutely dumpstered.
I think the only one that I would argue also, which would have been the Seekers deck that Christian played. His Seekers deck was pretty orange, but unfortunately he couldn't finish the event. He did make top 8 though, congrats to him. But he couldn't finish. But that was another one, so you had 2 of those types of decks that were pretty big orange decks, I would agree on. But it's tough. It is tough because it's a card that we know is beloved by many and hated by many, much like Peace to Tyranny, much like Security Checkpoint. So it's not like we haven't done these bans before. We've shown the will to want to change the game, and I think that this is a step in that direction, and we're going to find out next month. The next month is full constructed with the updated ban list, so we're going to see what that looks like. We're going to see how much it impacts it, and I'll be interested to see if there is a lot of orange black. Like if Magray was the card that was like theoretically keeping Decepticon orange black decks as a thing, we'll find out. I don't necessarily believe it, but we'll find out.
Yeah, we absolutely will.
So let's go to Junkion.
And I guess say let's go to the Junkion ban. So with Junkion, we banned Fight for Position. The best decks in Junkion have been 4-wide stuff for a while now. Right, what that stuff has changed. It's kind of rotated over itself. But we also believe that orange-black, and particularly black pips, have a true critical mass. We banned Fight for Position. Fight for Position it's just the most on-plan card on both sides of things. It's an orange-black pip, so it's great to flip, and it also plays into the critical mass by giving bold. Bold 2, every single card they flip is functionally worth an attack and a pierce. For the damage floor decks, there's not as many options for recourse for other strategies against this kind of thing. So we believe that hitting a card that is on plan and part of the critical mass pit and actually plays into the critical mass pit is the best way to soften that deck's dominance. Junkion's a format that's hard to affect with prints due to the philosophy we have about design and set release because of the size of our sets as well. So we believe that the ban list is something that is important as a format management tool generally, but especially so for Junkion. And that's why Powertrain came off in the last update previous to this one, and it's why Fight for Position has gone on. So
yeah, and I wouldn't say that because Powertrain came off, it means that Fight Position had to go on. I wouldn't make that argument. We just believe that it got to a point where Powertrain felt comfortable, or more honestly, I think we've probably said this before, but I'm pretty sure we just played it safe with Powertrain, and we just banned him along with Tailwind because we're like, oh, it's on the same curve of what you would do and make a 5-wide and be this and be that. Like, so I think we probably just did play it safe with him. Like I personally played him in the Extra Life event, and I told you there were games where, yeah, it was 5 versus 4-wide, but the way that we design characters in the format, they're able to match out the attack unless you critical it, kind of, or like you have to be like double offensive card all the time in some occasions to like quote actually steal the attack, because like although most of the time your guys just die in one shot almost all the time. It's because you're 6-7 health or low or 5 health. So when that happens, if you're not making the correct exchanges, then you're never actually like the 5-wide aspect of it doesn't matter. Especially if like you get to the end of the game with your Powertrain who is like quote suited up, maybe he has like 5 or 6 armor, I think the one game he had, pretty sure he had like a bashing shield, and he's just a 5 armor dude, like he's just gigantic. But it's still like, yeah, I'm a 5 armor dude, but I have 8 health. So like it's still not impossible for them to come over the top or hit him with a K-mean crash at some point in the game, like just things like that. So there are plenty of things that can happen in the game to where it's not like, oh, they have to attack this guy twice also. Like, that's just not true. So that's the way I looked at it a little bit. Like, there's definitely a lot going on in the format, and that card is not only played in just like a solid orange-black deck, but it's played in orange decks. It's played in mixed pip decks. It's just like it's played in quote good stuff decks. Like where it's just like I'm just gonna play all the best cards in the format. Like, so it's like it is the one card. Well, we can actually. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about the actual process that we went through for that. Like, so we actually went and we had said, like, I had said to you, I believe we need to ban an orange-black card from the format, right? Like, it was just like one of the orange-black decks, one of the orange-black cards had to go from the format to make an impact. So we had discussed Wedge Formation, we discussed Precision Fire, and we had discussed Fight for Precision. And it was like all three of those discussions happened. And the result ended up being Fight for Precision because we said at the end of the day, that is almost in every card deck. Like, it's an every deck card, sorry. So that was the end all be all. It's like, well, how do we put, like, if we're going to make this call, why don't we impact it as big as possible? And it's like, that's the thing that's going to ask almost every deck in the format to change a card in their deck. And that's a big deal. So that's another thing. So it's not like you're just targeting one thing. You're actually just targeting the format in general and saying, okay, pick again. And I think that's a nice change to think about as well.
Right, and making people play cards that don't just give them the best of everything is, I think, a great piece here, right? So like Supercharge is still legal in the format, right? Supercharge is just an orange pip, but it actually gives you more bold. But it itself is not as perfect a flip, right? So it's better with one plan and worse in another. So it's asking people to actually give up something for another. And that is, I think, really important when we're talking about the idea of orange-black being a critical mass deck, which is something I said a bunch of times in my first explanation of things, right? And so making people make, not suboptimal, but choices that are intentional, deliberate, and important deck building decisions oftentimes is a stopgap for certain kinds of critical mass strategies, right? So, right, even if it's like, for example, we can use a different thing besides orange black. If you are a deck that's based around dealing direct damage, but your options are Zap, Cammy and Crash, and Underhanded Tactics, that inhibits you to play a critical mass strategy because those are not the same pip cards. Right? So you don't get to you can construct a game plan strategy by trying to burn your opponent's cards, but the cards you're flipping are not things that you can account for, which affects your team composition by a large margin.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. Well put. So in the end, the reason why is because all different reasons, right? We discussed them all. It's we believe things can come in and out of Titan 1 pretty easily, and it's not going to tear the format to the ground. We believe that Fight for Position, comes out because it makes everyone make a change, and it hopefully gravitates the format away from mostly this aggressive shell decks that you're seeing out of these 4 wide aggro decks, and now 5 wide aggro decks and stuff like that. I mean, it's been quite some time since we've seen a pure blue deck succeed in the format at all. So we'll have to see if this is a step in the right direction to give it more of a succession rate. And then, of course, the magnetic dysfunction rate has just been, like we said, it's one of the more difficult cards to sit across from that's left in the game. So, yeah, that would be the why. So let's discuss a little bit now of ATP4. So I'm going to bring it up on screen. Bum bum. So yeah, so here is our Teletran 1 event. This is our Titan 1 event from August, actually. And I wanted to just look at... I love, once again, shout out to Zero and Tele1. This site is so useful for us. But I love the tournament breakdown page so much because it really, it gives you a different look at the top 8s. You can always look at the top 8s and, scroll through the decks and, look at them and see them. And you're like, oh, yeah, whatever. I get it. This is cool. But this really breaks it down card by card, and I just love that, So you can look at this Titan 1 and you can see 15 grenade launchers, 12 fusion boars, 10 Bastion Shield, 10 belligerents, 9 Energon Axe, right? So it's the first 4 cards are orange, and then your first blue card is Energon
fusion boar's a
Axe.
black card.
That's fair. Sorry. That's fair. But yeah, so you get to see these first couple lines are like that, and you can kind of go through, and then my favorite, right? I know this is probably your favorite too, is the one ofs, because I'm a one of guy. So I love to see the one ofs that are in the top 8. Man, when's the last time, I don't know, Reflex Circuits was played to Succession? Man, Kinetic Converter, okay, I see you. One of those, it's so cool to see these New Orders. Somebody played a one of New Orders, that's awesome. That's just awesome. There's things like that I love checking those things out. But I just, like I said, I like the idea here is you get to really, you get to get a real good look at what all of the decks look like, side by side in some way through that page, which is really fun.
Yeah. Did my video go away? Okay, it's back. Sorry about that. I totally agree. And one of the things that's fun to see too, which cards from ATP4 really started to make an impact in these events, right? Sure. I mean, I think the obvious ones, Orion Pax and Starscream. So an Autobot legend and a Decepticon legend. Nice to see both of those in equal numbers in the top 8 here. I think in the full con event before this, that was really Starscream Fiendish Ingrate's coming out party.
Yep.
Right. And the format is definitely much more aggressive leaning, with Legends in the metagame. We know HTTP3 lent itself to a big boy blue metagame. We saw Overlord, we saw Sound Waves in the main and sideboard, we saw
Galaxy
Menasor, we saw
Prime.
all sorts. Galaxy Prime come back with Thrust in the sideboard. Um, uh, and those interesting choices to have available in the metagame there as well, right? But this is just a completely different shift. So, and part of that I think is the stopgap of what Legends do when the Rise mechanic kicks in, right?
Right, right.
And the fact that you can't really play them with big centerpiece characters because they're kind of middling to expensive costs themselves.
Right.
But we see from ATP4, you see Show of Mastery and Skillful Display both showing up in 3 decks with a combined 8 copies apiece. So some legend mode support coming in there. We see pardon me, Absorption Core in 6 decks out of the top 8. It's a green pip card, right? So it does kind of have the Hollow Matter effect to it, where it kind of goes in everything, but as a one-off. And you love to see that. I know that Absorption Core was great for me all event. Just even though it falls off a lot, just having it not be bashing shieldable was enormously valuable for me all tournament. And I think one of the other I mean, like, there's plenty of other cool things to notice here. There are 3 copies of Heroic Spotlight in this top 8. That means that there were 3 at least Autobot decks, but I happen to know there were 4 because I was in this and I wasn't playing Heroic Spotlight. That is maybe an all-time high in the history of Titan 1 for Autobot decks in the finals. All Autobot decks, pardon me.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely for a while. I can say that much.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you see, even Withdrawal Protocol, which the fact that it rhymes always makes me happy. But even that coming in with 5 copies in 4 decks, or 3 decks, pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the format was mixed to aggressive largely here. I think there were like maybe 3 blue decks that were in the top 8. I think there was the Snapdragon Starscream deck, Aerial Bots, and Ziggy playing Pax Powertrain Jazz.
Yep.
And it got taken down by Aerial Bots. Superion was the thing that took this event down, which I think is one of the coolest things ever. Partially, that deck's worst matchup historically was Menasor.
Yep.
Right? And Menasor was nowhere to be found in this event because he's banned in Titan 1. Well, High Speed Chase is banned in Titan 1.
Yeah.
Menasor is still viable, but... and I think that was a big game for it, but also predicting an orange metagame and not necessarily an orange-black heavy metagame, but hedging your bets and playing some stable covers in the Superion list was just like an incredible call for this event. It was a really, really good meta call if you were expecting something aggressive, because the wide blue deck that goes into the direct damage stuff gives you a natural out to go Starscream, because he's just pretty fragile once he's in the other mode, to just getting pinged out to forever.
Well, yeah.
On top of the fact that you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Like, there's a couple things there. Like, with him is, since you are wider almost always, you can kind of easily burn him or pierce him out before you combine, or like you can pierce him enough and then combine and then bolt him, and you just put him in this position where he's not nearly as avoidable as he is in other things, where he gets to kind of hide in the shadows. Like, against you, he doesn't really get to do that much at all. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I like you said, like, this particular Superion list is very interesting. It's you had mentioned the stable covers and stuff like that, and what I had enjoyed a bit was actually the idea of, like, despite any difficulty, and like what that card can do for this, and then also concealing constraints and what concealing constraints can do for this deck as well, because it's just like, I don't even know that I can compare it to anything. I mean, like, I remember in testing, when we were like testing long range volley, like, I was playing not this exact list by any means, but like a fairly similar list, And I know that I was playing Concealing Constraints, and I always felt like pretty good about the card, but I was never like, I don't know if you would actually main deck this, But like watching his games and watching him like flip, and all of a sudden he's just like, defend for 9 because I had Concealing Constraints, or like defend for 9 because I had despite any of your difficulty, Like, he was just like, man, that adds up. Like, okay, like,
yeah.
Like, all right, like,
I think
pretty big.
Right? And there's two big pieces of that. One, right? So one is the fact that he decided to play uh, the aerial defense armaments instead of the double blues as his star cards for the actual heroic spotlight space that the deck gets granted.
Yeah.
And I think flipping that blue-white when you have a concealing contrails down, right? So the blue gives you the defense, and then the white is functionally finding you like 2 to 3, maybe even 4 defense.
Yeah.
Based on if you're flipping handheld blasters or dads or whatever blue pips. And also, aerial bots got a card in AGP4. They got long range volley.
Yeah.
Right? A long range volley into the face of a Ghost Starscream looks absolutely insane.
It's really good, and it's ironic. Right. The other card that I thought shined very well for him was Absorption Core. To the extent that if I were to sleeve this up again, I would 100% play more than one of them, because that's how good
at least in the 50. At least in the 50. I think.
Right. Like that's how good that. Because I remember you had to play Hollow Matter, right? Like you had to, because it's just like, man, like I just lose all these different cards. It's just like so damaging to me. I only have 1 defense, so like I can't lose that way and this way. Like now it's like, okay, I don't have to play Hollow Matter. Like I can play these other armors that are on color and get me that, and I can use, because even aerial defense armaments, like it's a good card to stick, but honestly, it's a good card to just play, use the ability, and then you can freely get rid of that. Like it's not like it's not like a card that like has to stay around for you. So the come into play effect is the bigger part of that card, and absorption
on top of the fact that you can play it over the absorption core, and get all of it.
And you just get 2 damage. Like you just get
2 damage, and you heal 2 damage and move a damage. That's just a ton of. That's a big trade.
That's why I really liked it. I really liked the idea that, ironically, like on combine, he could do like really stupid things. Like he could just be like out of nowhere, like I'm gonna bolt that guy for 4, absorption core this guy. Like you can do a lot of like really dumb things in the combine phase, with the addition of absorption core, which I thought was really fun.
Totally agree. And he wasn't playing the Enigma, too, which I think is a bold strategy, but maybe correct.
I mean, it's one of those cards that, like, it's very good when it's very good, and it's very bad when it's very bad. And, like, honestly, like, there is a fair amount of, like, sturdy to worry about in the format, so you don't want to just, like, you don't want to play Enigma for it to be a zap, right? Like, you don't really want to do that. So if you're looking at 1 or 2 characters on the other side of the board that have a sturdy, you're just like, maybe this card's not good. Honestly, it's almost to the point where like I would consider going down on hovercraft if I was also looking to upgrade this list. Like I would consider like, oh, maybe I want my 3rd Energon Axe, honestly, or maybe I want another Noble's Blaster because I just always want a weapon, or maybe I just want sturdy javelin. Like one of those things. I think you can make an argument to play over the armed hovercraft if you didn't want to play 1 or even 2 of them. But yeah. Honestly, like it was really, really cool to see Superion. Like it did top 8 a couple months ago, which was awesome to see. It was really cool to see Frank playing this. He was the same guy a couple months ago, played Superion to a top 8, and then he gets back on the top 8, and he had a hard run to the finals. I mean, he had to play against 2 decks that aren't necessarily favorable, by any means. So like he had a really tough run, and he surpassed the orange-black deck that is a bit of a worry, especially a deck playing Magrays. I think that's what it was. He played against 2 decks in top 8 and in top 4 that were playing Magrays, and like he just dodged the Magrays. So like it's
in the sideboard.
Right. Big deal. So, and then you had yourself here. You called this one the Build-A-Brave, but you had back-to-back events where you played virtually the same deck. I'm not sure if it was the exact same deck list or anything, but same character lineup.
It wasn't.
Right, so like same character lineup with Orion and the Powertrain Stratagem, which is obviously it's done pretty well for you. I know you went undefeated this event, but you didn't do so well in Fulcontron, right? Like you made top 8, but you lost in top 8, I believe, right?
I did. I lost my quarterfinals in top 8, and I lost my first round in the full constructed Swiss.
Right.
And then, and honestly, felt like there were a couple matchups that were just like completely unwinnable.
Right.
And part of that was deck construction. But additionally, it's just the deck just has holes. Like it just has natural holes, right? It is a 4-wide Autobot strategy that doesn't use its flip very well.
Yeah.
It's cold to multiple end hostilities over the course of a game. It's bad into it's not bad into Spy Satellite uplink, but it is bad into uplink plus supporting fire, which is a real threat in the format.
Fair.
So
Yeah. And then obviously, it's this is like one of those concepts of like if this deck were to really prove over the course of a metagame that it's a powerhouse deck. Like there are cards in the game already that people just aren't playing, like Tripwire. I mean, like Tripwire is like a straight hoser to this deck, right? Like it's just like
yeah,
you're like great. you're just like
I'm gonna kill Power Train now.
Yeah.
You're like awesome.
You're like
great.
Like I think it happened the one game I had seen. Like he had the uplink and he was just able to like flat kill your Power Train like out of turn. It's just like, well, I wasn't ready for that, but that sucked. Like
Yes.
yeah. Like damn.
That happened once in the Swiss of the Titan One event as well, but they had previously left my tote alive on one, and they left my high jump alive on one on the fall on like another attack.
Yeah.
So I just got 2 attacks out of my little guys in that match, so I was able to win that game anyway, just from having more attacks to wield.
Yeah.
So.
Then let's take a look at this the Snapdragon list, right? Soviet Bears.
Oh, this deck is beautiful.
Soviet Bears been
To look at.
he's been really highly appraising this deck. I have yet to be able to come into one of his games because he's like from Arizona and he plays at some really weird times that don't match with my times. But there's been a lot of talk about this list. Did he play this also in Full Constructed?
I don't know that he did, actually. I don't think he did.
Because as far as good summers going, he had back-to-back top 4s, so he's having a pretty good summer. I'm not sure if he's played the same list or not, but this was the most recent Snapdragon list that he was playing, and this deck does look like fire. I won't even lie. It's a pretty sweet lineup. The battle deck looks very intriguing, very interesting. And the coolest thing about this is what I really enjoy is it's another version of Starscream. So like we're seeing so many versions of Starscream come out, which is just very awesome to see all these different iterations of this character seeing the light of day.
I mean, okay, so when Blue-Black wasn't archetype,
Right.
when in the core sets of the game, right? Even through ATP 1, it wasn't archetype. ATP 2, you could the original Superion list with the rest of the context was kind of a tier 2 or rogue strategy that was a blue-black deck that was reasonable to sleeve up, right? But past that, there just really hasn't been one. This top 8.
I don't want to discredit it too much. I would say there was one blue-black deck in the ATP 1 metagame, and that would have been Tim Teo's Jetfire Jazz version.
Fair.
That was his my version was also a blue-black deck, but I would not have called it a blue-black deck. But his version was very much a blue-black Pierce deck. So like that, and he did very well with that deck. He won an event. He was in the finals of another event. So like that deck was a very big force in that particular metagame. But outside of Jetfighter Jazz shenanigans, which we introduced to even make it possible, the game itself has never had a successful blue-black deck. I will agree with you.
Yeah, I guess previously it's basically been play Autobot Jazz and here's the thing.
Right.
Right, because I guess I discounted my own Soundwave deck.
Right, which was definitely like it's definitely a blue-black deck, right? Like
right.
It's not
I would just call it a Jazz deck was what I would call it. Like it's not even really because it wasn't about like blue-blacks being so good on their face, right? These blue-black decks are about blue-blacks being so good on their face.
Yes, this is the opposite of Jazz, where Jazz is like, no, my blue-blacks are white blues. Like that's the difference.
Right.
It's like no, these are all like every time I do this, I'm gonna crit and defend for more. That's not the case here. Like this is a flat blue-black Pierce deck, which is not something that has had a whole lot of success in the lifetime of the game.
No, but it was cool. But he and I were battling it out for XO in the Swiss in round 5.
Right.
And then a blue black deck Superion won the event, and he got third. He got top 4. Like so even in a more orange metagame than we've had in a while, even blue black was a very real player, and I think that is really cool. And they're different flavors too, right? Like you probably couldn't play Concealing Contrails in the Snapdragon list.
Right.
Right?
No, no, you can't. It's not even close to the same thing.
Yeah, but what I was talking about basically was just like the idea that these being different flavors of blue black, right? The Snapdragon deck probably could not play Concealing Contrails. You maybe could sneak a copy or so in there if you're really scared of a belligerence matchup or something like that. But Concealing Contrails, you mentioned specifically in Superion, looked so impressive, right? So these are different. These are truly different flavors of blue black, an archetype that has not been historically fleshed out in an aggressive metagame, and you love to see it. You love to see these being good calls.
Yeah.
You know.
Um, so I don't want to harp too much on the rest of everything, but what we can say is from Full Con over to Titan 1, we had, both of the Starscream list basically kind of ported over. Like this is it's not nowhere close to the version that Ansel had played in Full Constructed, but it's the same breed, same concept, mostly the same battle deck, where he's trying to get Starscream and get the most out of this orange-black Pierce list, which is really cool. And then we had another one down here, which was, I believe this was played by Ogre, this one.
Yes, because he and I played it in the tournament, and his deck looked really good.
Yeah, and once again though, this is what you're seeing here. So you're seeing Starscream, Sea Spray, Highbrow, Brawn, and then you're seeing Starscream, Ravage, Mercenary Beast, Scourge. Like they're two just vastly different character lineups. The battle deck is mostly made up of the same cards. It's pretty close to the same pip colors and stuff like that. But it's interesting, here you had 3 Starscream decks in the top 8, and all 3 of them are quite different, and that's really cool. It's showing the power level of that card and the versatility of that card at 8 stars. And I think that's the biggest important part, is the fact that he's at 8 stars and he is just a solid stat stick of a character along with everything that's going on. And I think it's been really cool to see at this point, we've had 2 events, and I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 versions of Starscream have seen existence, which is really, really sweet. And you're frozen again, so that's fun. Oh, you're back. Haha, you're back. There you are. I see you, I think. No. We keep losing them. Maybe. There you are. We're back. All right, cool. We're back. We're good. Cool.
Okay.
So
I'm so sorry.
You're okay, man. It happens.
I wanted to talk about the fact that Starscream. You talked about Starscream being good, and I wanted to say you can see evidence of the metagame taking that into account too, right?
Yes.
Between Starscream and point position and withdrawal protocol and the powertrain stuff, there is a spy satellite uplink in every deck, whether it is main or side. All 8 of the top 8 decks have access to uplink in their 50.
Yeah.
And I think, and some even have more. I know that some people are also playing a battlefield scan.
Yeah.
Spotlights is as a star card of choice. People are respecting that metagame shift, and I think it's really smart to be doing so personally.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the same thing here can be said for packs. I mean, this particular top 8 was a Murray, Orion, and Starstream top 8, but this is the same idea here. This is 2 more packs as the round out the top 8, where this is Pax Powertrain Jazz, and then we have Pax Sea Spray Impactor with Spotlight. These are very, once again, this is a more orange heavy deck with a fair amount of blues. This is more of a blue deck with a fair amount of oranges, and then your list was a straight orange list, so it's very interesting to see these characters being able to set the bar in different formats, and I think that's really, really cool. And it's been fun to watch the metagame unfold. Running the next season just started. This weekend. The next event just started.
Next event.
Yeah, the next event just started this weekend. So it's been really interesting to see that as well. Because the events, everything's a little bit different. Oh, mother,
right.
I gotta fix us. Dun, 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 dun. All right, we're good. But yeah, so that's been interesting to see as well. Is we've been seeing the development of these characters, and if we go back to the first event, the Extra Life event in June, saw nothing but Megatron, right? So Megatron came out swinging, where I think he had 3. I think there was at least 3 copies of him in the top 8 of that event, and then he's kind of went away. He hasn't really been back since. There are some in this event, this go around, so that'll be interesting to see how they do in the event. Obviously, we'll follow that along as it goes. But yeah, and then The one character, the one legend we haven't seen much of is Rodimus. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if anyone starts dabbling with Rodimus, or we'll have to see what happens with him. But he's definitely been the most underplayed of them all. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we've mentioned Pax, we've mentioned Megatron, we've mentioned Starscream, all seeing play. So I think that has a couple of reasons, right? So Megatron, I think part of the reason why he saw so much play very early on was because he is a natural deck he slots into, right? He says Herald on the backside, and there are two other characters say Herald on the back on their sides, and those cards fit in a lineup together. That means it's very easy to go, okay, well these are my team. Now what does my deck look like, right?
Right.
So on top of that, right? So like I think you move next. The most customizable of the legends, of the four legends from ATP4, right, are Pax, because he can uniquely play stratagems where the other legends cannot before they arise. Right, so that lends himself to some really interesting stuff, right? You can play Spotlight, you can play Here's the Thing, you can play Down But Not Out, you can play, I believe we also saw No Matter the Odds in the top 8 of the Titan 1 event. All sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're playing Autobots. And I think then Starscream lends himself to some customizability too, just because he's the cheapest.
Right.
Right? So there's just some value to just being the cheapest legend mode character. Now, sacrificing leaders does really suck. You lose access to some really good cards. You can't do Matrix for any value, really. You can't do Valiant Effort for any value, really. And those are both really strong cards, and they're big incentives to not play Starscream, but Starscream himself is an incentive not to play, leaders. So,
Right.
kind of a give and take.
Right.
But it's not that we've seen only legends do
No.
well, right? I think in the full con event we saw Dinobots in the top 8, which I think had a slightly different path through top 8, maybe would have taken down the event, which would have been really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, if he's in a different bracket, he's in the bracket with Quake, So if he's in the bracket with Quake, it's like Quake. It's a very tough matchup for Quake to win. So, he could have very easily ended up in the finals if the standings had fell a little differently. But
for sure,
we've seen Dinobots. We've seen obviously Superion. Is another one that just came in and got it done. We've seen.
There's also another unsung ATP4 character who took 5th place in the Titan 1 event. Thundercracker.
Yeah.
Seekers, baby.
Yeah.
Seekers.
Yeah, Christian, like I said,
every time I see...
I believe Christian went 4-1 in Swiss. And then he unfortunately had to forfeit his top 8 matchup because of reasons. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see that deck play out also in the top 8, because it's another one that's Christian had come a couple months ago and won with Seekers, and he came back and he said, all right, let me try this Thundercracker. So it's another one that, like, I think Seekers is another deck that's very prominent. It's positioned fairly well and prominent because it has a lot of that spread damage that you need to compete with wider stuff. So it's definitely something that I would continue to look out for in the metagame, for sure.
Not to mention that, so Christian, one of the other things Christian mentioned is that Seekers is clearly good, but it has two kind of like strikes against it that keep it from being like metagame dominant. One of which is it's a toolbox deck, so making sure you bring the right assortment of things between your main and sideboard is actually kind of a task every event. And number two, it's actually mentally taxing to play. Yeah. It is in that class of thinking man's aggro deck. Right, like people sometimes look down on aggro decks, but I think they exist in a whole spectrum of things. And this being, an orange blank tribal pip deck, basically, means like the things you have access to you have to choose correctly because your margins aren't especially large. But the things you have access to in your deck also need to be impactful, and you need to be mindful of them. I believe he is playing a 41 card deck, but I think the number might even be higher than that for the optimal Seeker deck, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, toolboxes are difficult in undefined metagames. And like at the end of the day, we're still very much in an undefined metagame, which makes it even more difficult. Like I would have said, like had he ran it back, like maybe he got enough information from last event. He goes, "Oh, we're playing Titan 1 again. Well, I know what was good there. I can assume what's going to be good now, and I could retool my list to be even better than it was." So it would have been interesting to see if he did that. He did not, so that didn't happen. But still, it's one of those where I agree with you. The toolbox nature of it, it's one of those like where I'm never really interested in playing more than 40. I will always believe that there is just a better card than X, Y, and Z extra. And I would always rather have my best odds of getting the better card. But I do understand the nature of it. The one rule I think that I would exceed that for is Fortress Maximus. I believe that deck purposely was designed to be more than 40 cards through the entire nature of the way the card is designed from top to bottom. But other than that, I think it's pretty optional. But I
think with maybe one more exception. With maybe I don't believe in Destiny decks.
It's very possible. They're another one where I still believe that it's like, believe, get it? I still believe that
I don't believe
there is a best 40 cards, and it's just a matter of predicting the meta correctly. Because if you have like all the extra toolbox cards that are like they're good against this thing and they're good against that thing, and it's good to have them, but it's like if you don't play against this thing, you don't play against that thing, then you're just making the rest of your things and options worse. Especially like your turn 1 options. Like the more like, oh, this is good in this situation cards you have is probably bad in the first couple turns. So like the more you have of those, the more unlikely you are to like draw an armed hovercraft or draw a rapid ascent. Any of those things like crushing, any of those cards that you want to get early to move and to get value out of them early. The more cards you're playing that aren't those cards, makes it more difficult to be consistent, and I think that's a lot of the problem with Jetfire as well. Like we've seen good Jetfire decks in the past. We've seen, multiple finals for different versions of it, multiple wins for different versions of it. So we know that card has power and it has the ability, but it's definitely on that line of like, all right, how do I play this deck correctly? So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that impacts this. I think there was a few of them in the event. I don't know. I don't think there was more
I know
than,
Timmy's playing one.
I don't think there's more than 2. I know Timmy is. I think there might be one other person. But yeah, so anyhow.
Shout out to Timmy. But
always shout out to Timmy. He's my boy.
But yeah, I mean, HP4 is really shaking the game. We didn't talk about opportunism at all either, but that card's seeing a decent amount of play, right? Like the Snapdragon list wouldn't have been possible without opportunism. That card got printed alongside Merc B, so the natural thing and it's a utility for Merc B's alt mode ability, so you would think that like the support is specifically there, but no, it's support for all mercenaries, especially because you can play it on the mercenary themselves. First Merc card to really do that. That's not maybe Soldier's Blaster, which isn't even technically a mercenary card.
Right.
Yeah, like that coming out is a huge boon and a card that you love to see, and not every deck can play.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's got a put restriction, so it's not even a play restriction. So you can't even like buy it back from the scrap pile with Jetfire unless you started with a mercenary on your team. So, a cool card to keep an eye out for as well.
Yeah. So with that, are we ready to just dabble in the ATP5 design?
Sure. Let's go.
Okay. So we had a very slow start, right? Like we knew we were going to because of
it was like a break, really. We had some like hanging ideas from the last set, and since we had a basis of stuff, like we could just kind of take a short breather.
Right. Like I think we very easily could have put 30 cards in front of our playtesters, right?
From day one, yes.
I believe literal from day one, if we wanted to do that, we absolutely could have. But we could see the tax that it took on them in set 4 design, that we knew that they were taxed, we knew that we were taxed, and we just felt that as a whole, it was better for all of us to just take a step away, right? Like, and I think that was important. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to burn ourselves out. We don't want to be, taxing ourselves in that manner. And I think we were able to get away with it for several reasons. And we discussed this. If anyone that was watching the Twitch stream for the Extra Life, the last hour that after the event is myself and Wyatt going through, and we're actually commentating kind of over a game of ATP5.
We're kind of just. Pardon my language, we're just kind of bullshitting.
Yeah, we were just
during a playtesting match.
Yeah, we were shooting the shit, but they couldn't hear us, so it was fine. Yeah, so there's a lot of that nature of building blocks. We did all of the work in set 4. Like all of the work from a mechanical standpoint was done in set 4. So
We meaning us and the playtesters,
right,
not just
right,
Dana.
right.
Like the playtesters were
I mean
integral.
the protocols as a whole, which is the playtesters, all of that. We put in all of the work in set 4 design to get that complete, right? Like without that time restraint, that tax, all that thing, like it wouldn't have gotten done, but it did, and we figured it out. We know what the mechanic is. We know how to use the mechanic, and we know the different ways the mechanic can be implemented, right? Like we've learned all these things. We went through the trial and error. Like it was months of it. But since that, we knew in set 5 that we were going to follow up, right? Like to a certain extent, we knew we were going to do more legends. You know, we knew what we needed from other characters, and we had art now as well outside of our current art pool that we have that's in the public domain, because shout out to arbitrary hero Mr. Cameron Grimes. Not Cameron Grimes. I just like Cameron Grimes because he's a wrestler. It's Cameron at the Chami.
Who's getting married in a week at the time of us being recording.
He'll probably get married in sometime in the next few days after this is out. So definitely shout out to our boy Cameron. But he's been a huge help. He's been a huge help, obviously, all the time. But he's been a huge help with getting commissions for us to use for some of his favorite characters, for some of the things that he knew we wanted to work on as a whole. So that's really cool. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out that is, you know, from Cameron and the commissioned art that he got in set 5, which is a lot of fun for us to bring his cards, like his concepts, to life a little bit, which is a lot of fun for us too. So big shout out to that. So you have now that card pool coming on, and then you have the ideas. So like we had a direction, right? Like we knew, okay, we're gonna do these characters from Cameron. We knew we're going to do more legends, and what legends we probably could do or wanted to do. I do think we've threw some curveballs in there, which is fun because, you know, that's fun. And that's interesting. It's not something that at first glance, you know, from like an outsider like me from the lore, like at first glance I go, well, that guy's not legendary, right? Like, and that's where I would be like, but to see the story once again, because the big part of that is the story that we're telling of how they become this better being. I think the cards by design are doing a great job of that. So that's a lot of fun to do as well. And then of course, the whole all the whole filling that we can do, and all the pushing of, you know, everything that we introduced to the games, the Seekers, you know, the Heralds, the Wreckers, like all those things that we have really worked on to become metagame relevant and give people of like the fans that like really enjoyed those things from the comics, from you know, the lore and from all of that stuff has been fun to do. So like we already had a wall, like we had a whiteboard, right, of like, well, okay, here's the ideas, here's what we're gonna do, that's great. And we knew that we probably weren't gonna push game mechanics, and I think that was the big thing too, is that we have gotten comfortable enough to where we know where we are at Legends, and we know that's probably what's going to be another focus of the next set. And we know that we're very unlikely to push another mechanic because it's very uncommon for us to go back-to-back sets with new mechanics. So right. The break, it wasn't as important to meet the deadline that we pushed for ourselves, knowing that we weren't going to try and push anything brand new. And it was more just, all right, well, here's what we have, and let's just get the power levels right, because mechanically we know everything works. Like we're not afraid of the mechanic at this point. We know that it works. We know that it fits the game. We know the player base likes playing with the cards. So all of those things worked out, and then because of that, it's like, okay, well, now let's make it better, right? And that's what I believe we're pushing in the set for sure.
Yeah, I think you basically covered almost everything. You know, normally I'm the talky one, but
I got there.
You did, yeah. But it just wasn't as much of a need for us to front load, right? So the truth of the matter is that development is always the majority of the design process for us. We have an absolutely massive backlog of ideas for things. So the idea of like having things to mine for ideas is not the trouble, right? And the ATP4 burden was not just development from it was a multifold development problem, right? So like the Arise mechanic, the Legend mode mechanic that we knew we wanted to do, we knew we had to get right, and we had to test a lot for that to be the case. And so it was just a huge burden from the get-go on our playtesters, on us. Updates coming out every day for that group of people, and the fact that like that is not something that we had to have here. We thought that it was honestly the best use time for everyone involved to let people take a breather, let people focus on their tournament testing and decks, let people, kind of go on vacation if they needed to.
Not that they couldn't
Because it's kind
anyway.
of been like, well, they couldn't anyway, but like it's all voluntary in the first place. But like,
Yeah.
people who care about this kind of thing, and it's even though it's a volunteer basis, like you and I, the play testers, people who are just otherwise adjacent to the enterprise, devote a lot of time to this, man. Like, and so is largely was largely front loaded for ATP4, mechanically speaking, right? And so the fact that we got through that, we did so much of the groundwork, we thought it was really the best use of time to let everyone have take a breath before we dive back in, because of what a good foundation we knew we had heading into ATP5, and the fact that we had already planned from a logistical standpoint for it to be a flesh 'em out set as opposed to a mechanically different set, right? I think ATP1 was a flesh out set partially to teach ourselves. ATP2, we dived into mechanically distinct things in the team construction or team reformation of things, right? ATP3 was fleshed out on existing designs, right? More on seekers, more on wreckers, that kind of thing. ATP4 legend mode, big emphasis there. Some other stuff we're fulfilling. ATP5 will largely be a flesh out, that it will be an expand on existing themes focus that Dan already mentioned, and I'm proud and comfortable with that direction of design. So, and we're right in the heat of development now.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing is, and I mentioned this in the Patreon post last week, or yeah, last week at this point, by the time this goes live. This will be the biggest set we've done ever, which is pretty sweet. I lost.
it's not going to be ridiculous or massive. It's not
No.
150 cards or whatever. But
No, so it's gonna be what would we say?
like 35, 40 maybe.
So like, if our normal sets are 23, I think you're right. I think about 35-ish between characters and battle cards. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely a bigger set, which is exciting because it just comes along with the idea that we have everything set and we just have enough that all works together in some weird way of what it's trying to do without pushing the ledger mechanically. So where we can afford to go, all right, well, here's this, and then this will be enough, like big aspirations of enough to choose from, to where if we do decide to go in that mechanical route, we'll have kind of like a bit of more of a leeway of less strenuous situation, I think. I think that's kind of like the way I'm judging and gauging the situation a little bit. But yeah, so that'll be cool. That'll be fun. And it's like I said, we're underway. It's been probably about 6 weeks of testing now. Probably at least another month or so, depending on where our friendly printer is, which is also another annoyance and pain in my ass at this point. But can't please everybody, and the printer is just backloaded on stock because that's the world today, unfortunately. So we're hoping that it doesn't play too much into it, but right now we definitely don't have a direct release date. I am hoping by the next time we do this podcast, we will have a direct release date. That would be the goal. So we'll see what happens within the next few weeks when Wyatt and myself get back together, and maybe we have someone else on here to chat with us. We shall see. But with that, closing thoughts, sir. Anything you'd like to close with?
Well, I'll say this. I'm really excited for what we're doing at ATP5. I was giddy about all the stuff we did in ATP3 as well. I loved a bunch of the battle cards we had and the theme that we had there. We get to cover like multiple themes in this set, and because of the size of it, and like that has me super excited. I love the deck I've gotten to play in the last two events. I'm playing a bit of a crappy one in this event, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's more because it's a concept I wanted to explore. I will say the Energon Edition Extra Life prize means that I will probably have to take a real deck into that event for the first time ever. Uh,
Sure.
the one day events are fun for me. I like to
Yeah.
take something that I'm like, what is the goofiest pile of cards I can take in and get 2 wins out of, right? Like
That's fair.
that's normally what I'm doing for those, and so like this prize is that's big enough, good enough that like I'm gonna have to play something real. Like I should probably be doing anyway. That's really it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm more just
I'm
I can't.
I'm excited for a couple things in general that I think we can look out for. Like we had Smurf just the other day reach out and say that he maybe wants to do like an article or something like that. I think now that we're back into it, doing certain points of content should be fun and it should be easy for us to like deliver maybe a little bit faster now.
Yeah.
Mostly because we're just back into the swing of things. So it'll be
100%.
better to get into that. I plan on doing a deck tech for my list this event because it's an entirely different take on someone else's list from before. So it'll be fun to like compare the two and see how it does. So that'll be fun to do. I plan on trying to do more metagame breakdowns. I think we could even probably honestly do that like as like a little spot on the website, which we hope to be more active now as well. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
There is a plan. We know that we are way behind on the updates on the website. Once again, it just came with that summer break. We just kind of like halted everything. So we are hoping to get that up to date and looking more clean and like it hasn't been touched in 4 months because it kind of hasn't. So that'll definitely.
Well, there were some updates. I updated
I
the
saw
site
some. I saw
'cause
some
have
cool
access to
stuff.
that now.
Yeah, I saw some cool stuff that you did. I enjoyed it. But like I said, hopefully we can get some more stuff going on there and make it a little bit more clean and easier to find some information because I've had some reach outs of people that are having a tough time finding information. As always, you can join the Discord. There's also everything linked in the Discord to try and make it easier for everyone. There's like a specific channel with no chat. It's just every important link that matters. So that's a big one. The Facebook group is obviously all there. It's in the announcement post. If you don't know exactly where to find it, like, oh, I don't feel like digging, well, it's in the announcements. You can go and find a lot of information there. All the albums are there, and they're the same thing. You can just go straight to print with even from the albums if you wanted to make it easier for yourself. All those things. I lost Mr. Wyatt. He might be coming back now. We shall see. But, yeah, it's really death. There he is. He's back. He didn't hear me, but it was good because you guys could hear me. But yeah, so at the end of the day, that's a lot of fun. We have a lot of that stuff going on. The Extra Life thing is looking to be big for the one-day event. Like I said, the first prize has already been announced. It's going to be the Energon Edition. I will have some fun raffle stuff going on. I'm praying to the heavens that the Spot Gloss stuff is back by then. If it is back by then, at this point, I might even do an additional Spot Gloss character for that event specifically, because I did Perceptor for the last event, which is obviously just something that I may as well get it, right? Like, I really wanted one, so why not share that with the people that were able to come and help and support. So hopefully, maybe by then, we lost out on an entire summer of Spot Glosses, so maybe we make room for them there, and we have some fun with it, so we'll see. Like I said, it all depends on what the printer is able to do in the time that we need them to, and where we are when we get there. But that's going to be it for me for this episode. I haven't fully discussed it with Wyatt yet, but I'm hoping to do these bi-weekly at leading in for the next couple weeks.
On the hot seat.
So
hopefully,
hopefully Mr. Wyatt can work that into his schedule and we can figure it out. We both have busy schedules, so it's a bit tough, but hopefully we can kind of work it out. So we can
love to try and do that. I would love to try and do that.
So basically, just so we can give you guys the information as we get closer to Set 5, get closer to the Extra Life event. We can discuss the tournament while it's going on and stuff like that. This is actually a smaller event, so honestly, within 2 weeks, we might be like right around the top 8 because there's only 4 rounds this go around. So by then we'll see where it is. But with that, we're gonna call it a show. And any questions about ATB5 that you guys want to maybe discuss? Any questions about the metagame for ATB4? Leave in the comments. Hit us up in Discord, Facebook, whatever. Hit me up wherever. Hit Wyatt up wherever. We like to talk, obviously, so you'll get an answer from us, and we'll look forward to it. But until next time, we will see you guys later. Adios, Wyatt. Thank you as always, and see you guys. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm buying a signal extender today. First fucking thing I'm doing.